Hey guys, sebchoof here. If you clicked on this video, you probably want to know how to get a divine pet within a month, without spending any money, completely free to play, so without having to take out a mortgage. I'll show you how to do it. After all, my pet yard is flooding with divine pets since they're so easy to get. Okay, maybe not flooding, but I did delete an 100 divine pet for charity, completely maxed, and that was the third divine pet I've ever gotten with 3 abilities maxed. 3 times I've gotten an 100 pet without spending any money at all, and Decker's only made it easier and easier to get a divine pet fully maxed. Now I know why you're here, and I can understand why you want a divine pet. Harder content is a struggle, and seeing some people breeze through it because of their big beautiful pets makes you desperately want to do the same, so you're thinking of reaching for the credit card. No! Stop! Divine pets cost thousands of dollars to create, and it would also cost you the satisfying sense of progression as you go through the game and raise your pet with you. There's not many things in Realm of the Mad God to motivate you after death, but pets are one of those rare things, because once you die, you get a currency called fame that you're able to spend on your pet. Also, pets aren't a substitute for lack of skill, both will skyrocket to the moon together if you watch this and more of my videos, so subscribe. Now, it's very important for me to go through the basics with you, because progressing a pet in Realm is needlessly complicated, and one small mistake can cost you the pets that you've been working on for your entire Realm lifetime, and it will make it as scuffed as the servers. Then we will go into the insane strategies that I use to make fame and feed easy. So a perfect pet will require you to get 16 common pets of the same species, which comes from the same species of egg, but any pet species can be changed into another pet species in the pet skin wardrobe using 1000 fame. You find eggs most often from the Godlands enemies, which live on the Grey Land area, usually in the middle of the realm, and from Godlands bosses, and from realm events, like the Cube God and the Skull Shrine, for example. By the way, if you're watching this after the Realm Rework update hit, the Grey Land is thankfully gone, and there's probably a new area of the same difficulty where the eggs drop from, that is meant for level 20s. But it probably, most likely, still drops from the event bosses and the dungeon bosses. You can also get higher rarity eggs from the same sources. Higher rarity eggs means it hatches pets that are higher in level in general and have skipped fuses, so you don't need all 16 pets in that case. There's even the extremely low chance that the egg drop can be a legendary, where you would need 7 less pets. But don't get too keen for finding a legendary egg, because you may need 16 pets because it helps you finding the perfect pet abilities. Okay, sorry, I might be overcomplicating things. Let's start with your very first pet. A common pet, which has 1 ability. To get it, I recommend opening all eggs until you find a pet with the ability of heal or magic heal, because those are the most overpowered by far. Trust me, the other abilities are no competition. It is more ideal as a beginner to have heal instead of magic heal as the first ability, since restoring health is more important than mana, for a beginner at least, but mana is still great since you can use your ability much more, and you want to be working on a pet right away anyway. Now that you have your level 1 heal or magic heal pet, you want to feed it everything you find between 50 and 150 feed power. Each time you do feed your pet, it costs you 15 fame, so I hope you're good at dying. Do not even think about using gold, it's insane how expensive it is for real money. Don't worry, I'll teach you how to skyrocket the amount of feed and fame you get later in the video. Please trust me when I say, don't feed anything over 150 feed yet. Feeding becomes exponentially harder, and the pet power actually matches that. So wasting the good feed items when it makes it easier to progress your pet later when it's harder will make you hit yourself with regret. And if you are close to running out of vault space because you're storing so many items over 150 feed power, you can feed some. But remember, the later you feed them, the better. For your common pet, you only need 2080 feed power to max the first ability. I'll also teach you some special tips later on how you can store infinite items even though that you only start with 8 vault slots. How is that possible? Well, you're gonna have to buckle up to find out. Feed your pet until it has the first ability at level 30, and while you do this, open every egg that you come across while playing the game, and look out for a pet that has heal and magic heal as its first 2 abilities. Preferably heal first, but take whatever you can get. The second ability is grayed out for now, but don't worry, you'll unlock that soon. Then once your first pet is level 30, start leveling the second one, which I hope is the heal magic heal pet, or of the same species, or both optimally. But if you haven't found anything like that, don't worry, just level another pet. Once they're both level 30, you are ready for your first fuse. To fuse, what you have to do is upgrade your pet yard. You have to do this before fusing your pet to a new rarity for the first time each time, and it gets more expensive each time. To be able to have the uncommon pet in your pet yards, the upgrade will cost you 875 fame. Again, don't use gold, it is insane how expensive it is versus the fame cost. You also have to make sure your pets are the same species. If they're not, go to the pet wardrobe and change either of the pet skins to their other species, so they're matching. Then you have to spend 525 fame fusing the pets with the pet yard guy. Again, don't use any gold, you naughty scoundrel. It is really important that the pet you want to maintain the abilities of is the one that you select first in the pet UI thingo. And now fuse. Congratulations, you have your first uncommon pet. And you've unlocked your pet's next ability. It's time to start leveling it again, except this time you're getting both abilities to 50. This time I recommend using between 150 to 300 feed power items, and feeding will cost you 50 fame each time, so store everything over 300 feed power unless you're running out of space. This time you'll need 16,319 feed power to max both abilities for an uncommon pet. While you're leveling this pet to its maximum, which is both levels at level 50, again hatch every egg you can. If you didn't find the magic heal pet the first time around, be on the lookout for it. By the way, 2 important things I haven't mentioned yet. Number 1, if you find yourself to be a more skilled bullet hell gamer, I actually recommend using a magic heal pet first before heal, because you can always get your value out of magic heal since you can just press space constantly, but you have to be getting hit constantly to realize that you have the healing ability. So if you're dodging like the Matrix, it's gone to waste. And number 2, later on you'll need to worry about your third ability. So be on the lookout for a pet that has the first 2 abilities being heal and magic heal, whichever order. But for the third ability, you want to find it to be decoy or electric. Way later you unlock that ability, but it takes a while. It just makes it easy if you start looking out for it early. Also, before you get your pet to the next stage, you'll need to raise another 2 common pets, use them, then raise that second new uncommon pet to 50-50 as well, and then it's time to take your pet to the next level. So upgrade your pet yard for 3500 fame. Make sure the species are the same and you have the right pet selected first so you don't wipe the abilities. Then fuse the 2 uncommons into a rare for 1750 fame. Another really important side note, if you do improperly fuse your pet and thus screwing up the abilities, you can actually send a ticket into Deca support and they'll unfuse your pet on request. Just don't make the same mistake again or you'll look like an idiot. Now, after fusing this time, it actually doesn't unlock your third ability. Instead, your pet gets bigger and it looks a little different, which is cool. This time I recommend feeding your pet between 300 and 500 feed power items to level it and storing everything over, unless you're running out of space. Feeding is going to cost 175 fame per time now, and don't worry, it's not as bad as it's going to be. Keep in mind, the feed power recommendation numbers I give you will depend on yourself. If you feel like you don't get enough fame because you mostly do more casual, easier content, you can make it you'll feed only items between 400 to 600 feed power instead of the 300-500 feed power recommendation I gave, for example. But if you follow my tips later, feed and fame will be a joke. So this time, get your pet's levels both up to level 70, and you should start feeling your pet's power now a lot more. To max both rare pet abilities, you'll need a total of 61,148 feed power. So now you have your main pet at level 70-70, and you need to level another level 70-70 pet to fuse it with. You could fuse another 4 common pets into another 2 uncommon pets, and then fusing those 2 uncommons together into another rare. But something that you could do to make the process a lot faster is buying 2 uncommon eggs from the shop for fame. It will be worth it effort-wise, but I don't recommend using this strategy yet if you don't have that perfect free ability pet combination. Okay, fuse up until you have 2 70-70 rare pets, and now it's time to do it all again. Upgrade your pet yard so it can hold a legendary pet. This will cost you 43,750 fame. Fuse the pets for 7,000 fame, and nice! Now you have a legendary pet, and you have unlocked the third and final ability. Hopefully you got your ideal free abilities by this stage, but if you haven't, don't stress, there's still one more fuse for your main pet that gives you the opportunity to change your pet's abilities and lock them in forever. This time, only level your pet's abilities up to 90, 90, and 77. Not 90, 90, 90, because this way it's going to cost you way less feed power and more fame in the long run to get the perfect pet. And trust me, feed power is way harder to get than fame. I recommend feeding between 500 and 650 feed power items this time, and store anything that is over in your vault. and this will cost you a yucky 625 fame per time. Legendary pets need 285,010 feed power to max the first 2 abilities, and it's almost triple that if you want to max the 3rd ability before fusing, for those measly 13 levels on whatever the bad ability is. That's why I recommend stopping at 90, 90, 77. Okay, you know what to do, level up the 2nd pet, and let's skip to the stage where you have 2 90, 90, 77 legendary pets. And now you're fusing for the very last time. Thank God you don't have to deal with all that fusing bullshit anymore. Just make sure you have your dream pet abilities. You won't have a chance to change them again after this fuse. Upgrading your pet yards to hold a divine pet will cost you 87,500 fame, and the fuse will cost you 26,250 fame. And each time you feed your pet, it will cost you 1,750 fame. Now that might sound expensive, but that's chump change if you follow the steps later regarding fame in this video. I recommend feeding at least 650 feed power items this time to your new beautiful divine pets, and that's all you have to worry about now. No more upgrading your pet yard, no more fusing, just feeding. Fun fact, even though your pet is on its last rarity and you can't upgrade it again, leveling the abilities from 90 to 100 actually double its power. For example, a level 90 heal heals you 69 HP every 1.42 seconds, but a level 100 heal heals 90 HP every 1 second, which, if you do the math, is double. Maxing out your divine pet's first ability will actually cost you less than you've spent on your pet so far. So far you've spent 362,477 feed power, but leveling the first ability costs 273,344 feed power. And the great thing about leveling the first ability is that the second ability will also level rapidly as well, but to finish maxing out the second ability after maxing out the first one, it will cost you roughly around 150,000 feed power. And then for the third ability, I wouldn't stress too much about it, but that one will cost you another 490,000 feed power for not that great return on investment, to be honest, so I wouldn't stress about that one. So yeah, this is why I would recommend saving your highest feed power items to make leveling the divine extremely fast, and you will really feel the power because it gets crazy. It is a lot of feed power though. That's why it's really important to take out your notepad for the tips I'm about to give you about getting fame and feed power at record speed. In general, the more experience and skill you gain in the game, the more fame and feed power you will get. But I'll make sure to mention how to maximize the feed power and fame no matter what stage you are at in the game. And first, let me help you get too much fame. So back in the day, for some reason, killing the enemies that were in the Godlands was the most fame efficient. Tougher enemies would give you less fame for way more effort. How did this make any sense? Well, now it does make sense, because the tougher the enemy or dungeon, the more fame you'll get. But that doesn't mean there's dungeons at some difficulty levels that give you more fame than you would expect for how easy they are. For example, a great dungeon to do for fame that's beginner friendly is the Oryx Raid. When all the heroes get cleared in a realm and 2 minutes pass, the ground starts shaking and you get teleported to Oryx Castle. When you get there, just stick with the group to be in range of all the minion kills. You'll get XP as long as they're roughly in your vision. Follow the group all the way to the Stone Guardians so you get all the fame you can from the minions. Then get soulbound on the Stone Guardians by doing roughly like 1000 damage to each one to get the fame from them. Then if the wall opens up behind them, do Janus to squeeze in even more fame. Don't worry about missing the first Oryx kill. The rewards are roughly the same as Janus's, and if you are fast enough, you'll get the XP from Oryx as well. So rush back down through the wall you came through, into the portal, and hit this idiot. Oh, by the way, 2000 XP is equal to 1 fame. Then if someone pops a wine cellar incantation, if you're comfortable, rush past all the enemies. It will become a breeze after you do it a couple of times. Then deal a bit of damage to Oryx too, in a phase that you feel safe to, and then you'll get a bunch more fame, more than any other boss in this raid so far, and hopefully some nice great gear for a new player. And if on the rare occasion that Oryx Sanctuary does open up, you might call me crazy, but I would actually recommend a noob going in here, not to do any of the bosses, but just to witness the minions die, because they give 1 fame each before any fame bonuses from your gear or the modifiers. This is like the fastest way to gain fame, but it doesn't last long, and just Nexus before the first boss fight. By the way, if you're not doing this already, it's extremely important to play in busy realms to maximize the loot and fame you're getting. If you're playing with others, especially if you're new, you're more likely to be carried. At the moment, US East and US East 2 are the most popular servers, but this might change in the future. Join discord.gg/sebchoof and ask in the #help channel if this has changed, if it's been a while since I uploaded this video. Now, one of the main reasons you want to be in a packed realm is because oryxes happen way more frequently since there's multiple people, or many more people, that are closing the realm, and more events spawn because of that as well. There's some events that only last a few seconds once people make it to there, and they give you a decent chunk of fame if you teleport on them in time. Like for example, Cube God, Penteract and Skull Shrine all give 7.5 fame each. Some fights that are slightly longer give more than double the XP than that. Like for example, Hermit Gods, Jade and Garnet statues, Lord of the Lost Lands, the Ghost Ship, and Grand Sphinx. All give between 15 to 20 fame per kill. Just ignore the rock dragon, no one likes him. He sucks for fame and is just annoying to fight. And he drops the worst event white. Then there's the tougher fights, which give between 25 to 35 fame, including Avatar of the Forgotten King, Cogbold Expedition Engine, Crystal Wormfather, the Killer Bee Queen, and the Lost Sentry. Now, compared to the other bosses, it's not worth sticking around for the entire fights of these bosses. But once you become familiar with these fights, you can actually just come at the last second or keep checking on the boss's HP to get soulbound for loot and fame. So you could be doing something like farming the Godlands for fame, min-maxing, and then arrive at those tougher events for that massive fame boost at the very end. So while you're in a realm, especially a busy one, I strongly recommend keeping your eyes peeled for event spawns. They come up as quest indicators if you're level 20. For mid-game, Ocean Trench, Parasite Chambers, and Ice Cave all give a surprising amount of fame for how fast they get cleared, so make sure you do these when they come up. A lot of dungeons that you might do have a rusher, like the Ocean Trench. Why not kill enemies while you wait for them to get to the boss? It's also worth mentioning to pay attention to which dungeons have an event ongoing at the moment. You can either type /event in the chat to have something pop up on the left side of your screen showing all the dungeons that have events. But even better, if you are in Nexus, there's a calendar at the top that you can press to show which dungeons have which events now and until the end of the month. Almost always there's a dungeon that gives you 1.5 times the fame and loot multiplier, which would make a dungeon much more desirable to run. Also, pay attention to the gear you wear, because they also give you different amounts of XP boosts as you witness enemy deaths. A strategy that I like to use is to hold swap out gear. It can be an item that sucks, like for example an Exalted Wisdom Ring. The good thing about it is it has a 5% XP boost, but you might only have a superior HP ring which gives you 3% XP bonus. So like for example, before Oryx dies or an event dies, you can swap to that Wisdom Ring for one moment just to get that little XP boost. It's free stonks, man. I also recommend getting used to autofile. It's a small optimization that not only will make you better at the game in general, but will lead to more kills and thus more XP. It just makes your gaming in general easier instead of having to hold down a button all the time. Just do it. You can also keep an eye out for dungeon modifiers that boost the XP that enemies give within the dungeons. If this is on either one of the event dungeons that are already boosting XP because of the event, or one of the dungeons I recommended earlier, it's a no-brainer to do that one if you're looking for a good amount of fame. Now, when you're endgame, no doubt the best dungeons for fame is Exaltation dungeons. All the dungeons that appear when you pull up this tab are the best for fame in general, the main ones being Nest and Cult. For some reason they're much easier than the others, but they feel like they give more fame per minute. You also don't have to worry about dying as much as compared to the longer, harder dungeons. Speaking of the Exalt tab, the Exaltation system is another permanent long-term progression system like the pet system, but this is just one for endgame. And with it, if you complete Exaltation dungeons while you're 8-8, you get progressions toward a stat increase. And every time you get a stat from completing the specific dungeon, the amount of times you need to, for example, at the very first it's 5, it will increase by increments of 5 until the 5th one at 25 completes required for one stat. And when you get 8 stat increases in total, you get a 5% increase in XP boost, which you can get a maximum of 4 times for a maximum of 20% extra XP for 32 stat bonuses. If you're a newer player though, I wouldn't worry about Exalt just yet, but it's something to keep in mind as you get more experienced. A way to make Exaltation dungeons even easier is through discords that organize raids. Now, a large portion of RotMG players hate discords, including me, because 1, it really trivializes the game, and 2, it takes a lot of people out of the realms, making them more dead and into the bazaars, and 3, it's the home to some of the worst communities in the game. But it is really helpful for new players because they supply keys and players that can help you just mow down enemies. So at the very least, it can be a nice way to learn to do dungeons for the first time. Another thing you could just do is watch me solo Exaltation dungeons on petless characters on my second YouTube channel. That would be a good guide. But when it comes to the Discord, I'd recommend joining the most, other than mine of course. It's actually a Discord for realm discords. Yes, you heard that right. Discords are such a scourge of the game that there's a Discord that has all of the discords in it, so you can easily access the discord that's right for you depending on which dungeon you want to farm. Another way to significantly increase the amount of fame that you get is by staying alive for a long time and achieving fame bonuses. Majority of the fame bonuses only add a flat amount of fame, which aren't too significant to be honest, but there's many fame bonuses that are actually multipliers on your base fame, meaning that if you live for a long time, it will significantly increase your fame on death. So if you're going for them, you have an increased incentive to stay alive as long as you can. Let me go through how to get them. Firstly, you get 2.5% for maxing each stat, but 5% for maxing life and mana instead. So that's a total of an extra 25% fame if you're 8/8 on death. Secondly, if you complete almost every dungeon in the game at least once, you get an extra 112.5% fame. So that's more than double, which is pretty insane. But realistically, you probably won't be able to get the biggest bonus there because it requires you to do some seasonal dungeons, including one that's only available during Christmas. There's many different singular dungeon bonuses, like they're grouped up sets of dungeons you have to complete. If you ignore the seasonal dungeon one and do the rest, you'll get an extra 87.5% more fame on death, which is still pretty damn insane. You can see these fame bonuses and the progress towards them in the dungeon bonus section in the stats tab. So yeah, live as long as possible. I know it's easier said than done, but the more experience you get, the easier it will be. But sometimes you will have to kill your character in order to get more dead fame, so your vault doesn't get too overloaded. So plan out your deaths accordingly. Don't go on these insane missions to complete one of each dungeon on a character that you're not planning to have alive for too long. And you only want to go for these bonuses when you do have quite a high amount of base fame that you're satisfied with. So now with all these tips, you just have too much fame to deal with. You gotta find a way to spend it, which leads us to the next part. Seb, how the hell do I get more feed power items? Though Deca gets a lot of smack from other things, one thing they're great for is the amount of free stuff they give, especially to benefit your pet. Firstly, you get so many free feed power items from the calendar every month. This month, just by logging in, you get 9,800 feed power, just from the feed power specific items. You can even feed more items if you like the skins. I wouldn't do it, but you can if you want. They're 1,000 feed power each. From the battle pass, you can get 5 Agent of Oryx items from the current one, which is roughly another 3,650 feed power. There's also so much feed power you can get from the missions. There's a one-time ambrosia you can get from completing 2 Oryx Sanctuaries. Don't worry, that's the hardest example I'll give. There's also repeatable missions. Okay, this is another rough one. 2 Moonlight Village completes on a Crucible character gives you a droplet of ambrosia for 1,800 feed power, and that's every 18 hours. Okay, now here comes the easy ones that anyone can do. There's a mission for a French toast which gives 1,800 feed power, and it requires you to kill 5 avatars of the Forgotten King, and that one resets every 18 hours as well. Also currently for 5 Puppet Masters Theaters completes, you get 5 Crystals of Fortune, which is another 2,000 feed power, resetting every 18 hours as well. Keep in mind, at the time of watching this video, there will almost definitely be different daily missions, but this was just to give an example, and in total that's 5,600 feed power every day for not doing much work. Let's assume you're completing this every day and not every 18 hours. If you do this for an entire month, that's a whole whopping 173,600 feed power, which is equivalent to roughly 173 legendary items. Those are the rarest white bags in the game. Now hopefully there's daily missions like this every season, because nothing in the game competes with how much feed power you get from this. The devs don't stop there with the generosity. There's also limited time Tinkerer event quests, which Deca's pretty generous with, that offer a wide range of cosmetics, or you can alternatively feed them if you want to level your pet faster. With the current event, for example, there's tokens that require you to complete a single dungeon, one of them for example being the Puppet Master's Theatre, and there's many different rewards you can get for those tokens. So starting with the more expensive ones, the one-time items, for 60 Puppet Theatre completes, you get a Superior Mystery skin, or 1000 feed power. For 40 completes, you can get a Jayco pet skin, which is another 1000 feed power if you choose to feed it. For 80 completes, you can claim one of these super cool skins, but if you're crazy enough to feed it, it's another 1000 feed power. You also get these tokens alongside the Jester Bells, and you can trade in 20 of these for a UT, which gives you 750 feed power, and then you can trade in 40 for a UT, which gives you 900 feed power. Then, and now this is the best part, daily you can also trade in 10 of the Carnival tokens for 5 more Crystals of Fortune, which is another daily 2000 feed power, and 10 of the Jester Bells for one of these chests, which drop these different items. Now we can't know for sure how much the average feed power is from opening one of these chests, but an ST chest is roughly 800 feed power, the Agent of Oryx tokens are worth an average of 132.5 feed power, and an Ambrosia is 5000 feed power, and mystery pots just aren't worth feeding. So I think it would be lowballing to say the chest is worth at least an extra 300 feed power per day. And since the token drops alongside the other one, it's free feed power basically. So that means over the 7 days of this event, you can claim 1300 feed power daily and 4650 for all the one-time items, meaning you can get a total of 13,750 feed power during the week. Now since there's almost always an event ongoing, if we assume that you only do the daily events but for an entire month, that's an extra 40.3 thousand feed power. Keep in mind, the calendar, battle pass, missions, and Tinkerer quests that I've talked about so far will definitely not be in the game by the time the video releases, but there's almost always events out. They could be less or more generous. I just use the current ones as an example. And with that example, if you assume that you use the skins instead of feeding them, and you farm the daily missions and Tinkerer quests, you'll get a total of 228,700 feed power. And that's not even including all the items you would obtain while farming these daily missions and everything. On top of all these free items, Deca also gives free packs in the shops once in a while, so make sure to claim those when they're available. Now of all these items I've mentioned so far, they all get sent to your gift chest, so do not take them out unless they're in the feed power recommendations I gave earlier. With each of the pet rarities, the gift chest essentially works as infinite storage. Don't take them out to help with the early stages of a pet. You want these stronger feed items to help you catapult you through the harder stages of the pet, like a legendary and divine, but mostly divine. Another feature that you can benefit from, like we mentioned earlier, is dungeon events. Usually doing chest events is really good for feed power, and sometimes 1.5 times loot chance events is also good. If you look at these chest events going right now, there's a few feed items and the odds of getting them is pretty nice. But what about dungeons outside of events? Well, for early game, Manor of the Immortals, Candyland Hunting Grounds, Davy Jones' Locker, and Ancient Ruins are great. Also, the Oryx raid has a good chance to give you high feed power items on top of the tiered upgrades and the fame. For mid-game, I just do the dungeons that I mentioned earlier because they're not only great for fame, but they're pretty good for feed power. So Ocean Trench, Parasite Chambers, and Ice Cave. And of course, as expected, endgame dungeons are amazing for feed power compared to the rest, with many of their rarer items feeding for 1000 each, and sometimes they even drop more common items that feed around 500 each. The best example of this is the Nest, because this dungeon often drops honey circlets, apiary armor, and behemoth armors from killing just the regular enemies before the bosses, and these items range between 500 and 650 feed power. It can also drop 4 different whites that are worth 1000 feed power each, and 4 other STs which average around 800 feed power. Now, the Forge is crazy for helping you make a better pet. You won't even believe what I'm about to say. You want to take advantage of the daily 300 free Forge file, because it caps at 1600. The best thing you can do is firstly unlock the Planewalker blueprint. You can either find it naturally, from memory it drops from things like the events and Oryx, or you can purchase it from the shop for 3150 fame. Then all you need to do is gather 4 of the crappiest UTs, the ones that dismantle for 15 common materials like Sprite ones and Snakeskin shields, which almost have no feed power on their own, and you can use 4 of these to craft 2 Planewalkers every single day, sometimes free, because each forge costs 120 forge file, and Planewalkers feed for 750 feed power, meaning you get an average of 1875 feed power per day. You can also use blueprints to discount the forge fire cost if you have too many or don't want to feed the blueprints since it's only 500 feed power. The best way to obtain these lower quality UTs is by full clearing sprite worlds, since the smallest minions and the boss drop the sprite wand often. You can further abuse this strategy to the maximum by making as many ults as you're willing to. Just make sure to obtain the Planewalker blueprint on them. It's also probably a good idea getting the character slot and vault for fame from the store, so that you can store the items that you need to create the Planewalkers and the Planewalkers afterwards. And yeah, then just use the daily forge fire and ults to create as many Planewalkers as you can. So now instead of being capped by the daily forge fire, you're instead capped by how many accounts you're willing to create and use for the Planewalker strat. You will need a trusted middleman to transfer the Planewalkers over to your main account from your ults. But this leads to another great advantage of this strategy, and it means you don't have to worry about these feed power items clogging up the vault on your main character. If you're desperate to level up your pet fast, you can even start this strategy right now, so that when you do reach your pet to a higher level, you have a lot of Planewalkers waiting. Also, you could collect the crappy UTs on your main account and trade them over to the middleman when he's trading you the Planewalkers, to save time grinding on ults. So yeah, that's a daily 1875 feed on average per account. Over a month, that's another 58,125 feed power per account. How many ults are you willing to make for this? To be honest, I'd rather just grind on my main, but it's up to you. Another great strategy is that if you have excess items like potions or other items like that, you can trade them into greater life pots on RotMG, then those into candy-coated armor, which are a common bartering item in Realm of the Mad God right now, and feed for 1000 feed power. For example, 3 speed pots you can trade to get a greater life potion, and then you can trade 14 greater life potions for a candy-coated armor. RotMG.com is the website to do this, and you can search for other people's listed trades or list your own trades and wait for people to direct message you in-game. One endgame player strategy, which isn't as great as the previous tips but you can still utilize if you're more of a gamer, is if you do finish a Shatters or an Oryx free solo, you get 2 1050 feed power items guaranteed, and that's on top of all of the other items you might get. Those dungeons are pretty generous when it comes to drops for feed power. Another endgame strategy, which is really tough to attain, is that every time you exalt each stat once for every class of the same weapon type, you get 5% more drop rate. So that means for the first 5% drop rate, you need to do 5 cults, 5 nests, 5 fungals, 5 steamworks, 5 marble colossuses, 5 voids, and at most 5 shatters and 5 oryx frees, and that's per class of the same weapon type. You can get up to 25% when you fully exalt all classes of the same weapon type, but honestly that's probably more of a grind than a divine pet. If you're following this guide, you'll probably get a divine pet with the first 2 abilities maxed before you even get the 25% drop rate. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and big thank you to people financially supporting me on YouTube, Twitch and Patreon. Consider supporting today so I can keep up the quality content. Guys, like the video and subscribe if you want to show me that you want me to upload more, and check out this video on the top classes I recommend for beginners. Peace.